I lost my only child, Jordan, in 2014, 25 years old, prescription drug overdose. And myself and two other women created Mom Stop the Harm. We have now about 4,000 members, so we're working hard to change drug policy. And we will not stop working on this till we find a safer way for people to access the drugs they need.
That was tonight's guest, Leslie McBain. I'm Donna. This is Phoenix Fire coming to you from Saskatoon, Treaty 6 territory, and the traditional land of the Métis people. Bumbled that really bad. Let's bring in Leslie. Good evening, Leslie. How are you?
Good evening. I'm just fine. So glad to be here. Thank you.
And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you to everybody who's watching tonight. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started?
I think only that every single platform that we advocates get to share every single one is important. And I'm just really happy to be asked to be on your program because, we say sometimes we're preaching to the choir, but the choir needs to be inspired as well to go out and do the work. So thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, Leslie. Okay, so let's run this story. So before we jump in, I'd just like to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is premier sponsored by Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Mom Stop the Harm. Okay, Leslie, when we talked the other day, we decided we'll start off with telling us a little bit about Jordan growing up and wonderful young man he was.
He was from the moment he was born, after a 90-minute labor, I always say he flew across the sky like a comet, and he did. And, comets burn out, and that's kind of what happened. But this kid was irrepressible. He from the moment he could move around and crawl and then walk and so on, he never stopped. We did find out later that he had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but at that time we just thought, and it was true. He was completely happy and joyful and risk taking and connected. He was a popular kid right from the beginning because he could connect with you and talk you into doing just about anything. He was just a great kid, and he was always telling jokes, and he was the center of attention. He was a good-looking kid too, which helps in life. I mean, it just does. That's just the way it is. And he grew up to be a handsome young man. He was he was a skateboarder from a fairly young age. He was into rap music from about age 10. When I gave him an MC Hammer cassette. I always felt like that was one big mistake I made as a mother. Like, I found it at a thrift store. Oh, he'll like this. Anyway, that evolved into full-on, rap consciousness. Anyway, he was a really good skateboarder. He was just, I don't know. Yeah, he loved parties. He loved gatherings. He was always the one to start stuff. I'm sure the things I don't know about, he was probably the same. He was, the kids were all, going down to the swimming hole when we live here rurally and drinking and smoking pot and stuff. And I'm sure he was the leader of the gang. So he was just, he was amazing. In about grade 4, his teachers were, except for one exception, my friend Lynn Wells, who was his teacher, were getting kind of frustrated with his activity and his disruptiveness. And one teacher then suggested, and she was wonderful also, suggested that we have him tested and for ADHD. And so we did that. And it turned out that he was kind of on the low end, but he also had dyslexia. So when I look back, I see some of those traits were maybe things that led him to substance use at an early age. Some of the stresses of that. Yeah, so he was a leader. We got a skate park built, a movable skate park inside our community hall, which is
Wow.
no mean feat. But he spearheaded that and the fundraising that went along with it. So yeah, he is definitely high energy kid.
Yeah, sounds like a real go-getter as well. And so, I'm sorry, Leslie, you may have somewhat answered the question I'm about to ask, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. At what point do you find that things went kind of sideways for him? Was it after
Yeah.
that diagnosis?
No, actually, it was, in like say in the middle teens, or maybe 14, 15, when he started drinking and smoking pot with his friends, which I considered, we always talked to him about it, but I sort of considered like it was normal activities for teens. So that's what they do. We did talk about pot, certainly, and on, its impact on the young brain, and gave him articles and all of that. But when it really looked like it was becoming a problem was probably in grade 12. And then it really started, he left home right away, and just went to Salt Spring Island. So he didn't go far, and he came back all the time. But where he was there was some influences that, perhaps he was seeking, but it was all about substance use. And it was all about substance use. And he did come back to Pender Island at some point, and I could see, and he knew, and we talked about it. I knew nothing, as many of us moms were in the situation of knowing nothing about substance use, or addiction, I should say. Addiction just wasn't part of my vocabulary. I didn't have family that were addicted. I didn't have friends, at least that I knew, that were, I didn't know if they were addicted. I mean, it just wasn't in my repertoire of understanding. He came to us, came back home, and I think he was 19, and he said he was addicted to cocaine and alcohol, and that he felt like he needed help. There's a tricky thing right there, because I'm not sure if he got in trouble with drug dealers at that point, and recovery was a safe place. Like, I have a suspicion, but I don't know that for sure. It's possible. Anyway, of course, we got him into a recovery facility, and he stayed there. He stayed there for about 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks out of the 3-month program. And he just called and said, "Look, I'm leaving." He said, I can't do this religious stuff. I can't, this isn't working for me. I don't like it anymore. At first he liked it. At first he was like connecting with everybody, all the guys there, and, kind of enjoying himself. But then it's hard to say what happened, but he left there. And so that was another turning point.
Okay. And so he would have been about 19, 20 at this point? Okay.
Yes.
And
yeah.
So then what happened? Was he employed at this time as well? Or do you have any idea how he was supporting himself or his habit?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
He, and in the true spirit that I just sort of described of Jordan, he got work. He was doing chimney cleaning here on Pender Island, and everybody's got a wood stove here. So he bought himself the tools that he needed and so on. And so he had a little business going. He had a beautiful partner. He had an apartment or a house actually that they rented here. Things looked good, but he was using drugs. I know that. But anyway, but he was maintaining somehow. Then he wanted to get his certification. It's called Wood Energy Transfer Technology. And it's a certification that you get to be able to install wood stoves. and just do more of some of the, the more technical aspects of it, if you will. And so he started a business called Island Sweeps. And he and his partner printed up business cards, and they did all kinds of really good marketing. And they got lots of business. So Jordan was out there doing this work, and the money was just disappearing, and it was disappearing into substances. How he ever did this, being on whatever he was on at that time. So I think he was also like a multi-substance user. I think he was using cocaine. He loved cocaine, and maybe methamphetamine, as well as down, as well as oxycodone, and I don't know what else. But somehow he was doing really well within addiction. He was still himself. He was still just go-getting and all of that. And then I think, again, the turning point was where he did hurt his back on the job site, and he went to our family doctor who prescribed oxycodone to Jordan. Well, this was, his dream, I think. I mean, here he was actually getting safe supply.
Yeah.
He was getting safe supply. We really didn't know anything about fentanyl. We didn't know, it wasn't in the picture then. So, because we're talking 2013 here.
That was just before the opiate bubble burst, wasn't it? Before it was discovered just how bad this substance potentially was, whether it would be prescribed or not, and the fallout that it was causing.
Well, and in fact, it was just before fentanyl. I don't think he ever took fentanyl. I'm pretty sure he did not. But he, the doctor, our family doctor, prescribed him oxycodone for 7 months, and pretty much an increasing. It was like he was nurturing this addiction. And so the way the trajectory here was that Jordan came to me again, and he said, "Mom, I am addicted to Oxy. I want to get help. Will you come with me to the family doctor? And I'm going to tell him and see if we can get some help." It was a disaster. The family doctor, basically, when Jordan and I was in the room, and Jordan said, "I'm addicted, and I up to the oxycodone, and I need help." The doctor became enraged. He was furious that Jordan would have become addicted. I was in disbelief, and he started yelling at Jordan. He said things like, one quote I remember was, "Well, if an addict's lips are moving, he's lying." I'm like, whoa. And at some point, the only thing I said in there was, "Look, could we just move forward? We're here for help." He basically gave Jordan one more prescription and said, "I never want to see you again." So he fired him as a patient. I talk about system failures, and there's several. I counted up 8 once, and one was, and you don't have to count them out there, but one was the fact that the recovery facility that he went to did not meet this kid where he was at. They did not look at him as an individual. There was just a pile of young men in there, and they were treated the same. It was 12-step. It was go to group. There was nothing that he needed there. So to me, that's a system failure. Second was the doctor behaving that way. And the next one, Jordan said, "Mom, I need to go to detox. Help me get into detox." So we phoned, and it was some 2 or 3 week wait.
Right.
And Jordan didn't have enough drug to get there. And I forget exactly why this happened, but I ended up going, to the parking lot of Walmart buying drugs for Jordan, so that we could get him to detox, that he wouldn't go into withdrawal and just give up. So that worked, and he went into detox, came out after, 2 weeks or so. And, what detox does is it cleans your body of the drug. It doesn't make the addiction go away. It doesn't do anything except clean your body out.
Yep.
So you come out and, you know, there was a few terrible months of withdrawal. They weren't terrible like if he was just cut off, but at the same time, he was, you know, I don't exactly, it was sort of a black box in this point where I don't really know what was going on, except he was having a really hard time. And he ended up doctor shopping, which is going into walk-in clinics with his charm and good looks and his clean clothes and everything, and saying, you know, saying he had back pain. You did that?
Yeah.
A little bit.
It works. Unfortunately, it works, you know.
Look at that smile. Of course it worked.
Of course it worked.
It's amazing what you can achieve when you like clean up and look like nothing is wrong, really. Unfortunately, you know, so anyway.
Exactly. And he was able to do that. And he was always a sharp dresser, and it had something to do with that rap thing too, you know. Always had to have, you know, the really good clothes and everything. But this is where the story, you know, gets bad, where the doctors that he saw, and there was 4 walk-in clinic doctors involved in this, prescribed him either there was benzodiazepines, there was citalopram, anti-anxiety meds, hydromorphone. There was a compendium of drugs that he got that interacted one night. He took one of each, as the coroner said, and it stopped his heart. So here's a huge system failure. Well, did I mention detox as a system failure just because of the wait times? Here's another one where in our province in BC, we have a thing called PharmaNet, which doctors are supposed to check to see what this person has been prescribed. And nobody did that. Nobody checked. So, you know, he was given this basically fatal combination of drugs. And he stopped his heart, and he was lying on his bed with his headphones in, listening to music, and he died. He was in his apartment. We'd got an apartment for him. He was registered to go to college for carpentry, and his partner had forgotten her key, and she called me and she said, I can't get in. I don't know where he is, et cetera, et cetera. And we finally got the police and the manager, and there he was. So that was Jordan's demise, and it was the most terrible thing that will ever happen to a parent. It was the most terrible day of my life, and that horrible day continued for about a year of just not knowing. You know, you have to ask yourself questions like, so he was my only child, so am I still a mom? You know, or who am I now? I don't have this person. I'm going to get a little choked up here, but that was my reality for a year. It took to try and figure out, okay, can I move forward? You know, what am I going to do now? So that's when I started searching for others who had been in the same situation. And that's when I found Petra Schultz, who'd lost her son Danny to fentanyl poisoning the same year, and Lorna Thomas, whose beautiful son Alex had died of a drug-related suicide the year before. So the 3 of us got together, and it took some doing and some missteps and some good steps, and we created Mom Stop the Harm with the goal of working to change drug policy to ones that supported the lives of people who use drugs.
And so how did you find the other ladies to start Mom Stop the Harm? You know, because the internet wasn't what it is today, where you could just easily track people down, really. So that must have been quite an endeavor.
Well, it was kind of interesting that my old dad had seen an article in the Edmonton Journal. He lived in Edmonton. Excuse me. With featuring a story of Petra Schultz and her husband Rick talking about Danny's drug use and his death. And so my dad cut the article out of the newspaper and mailed it to me through the mail. Yeah. And so I got this and I'm going, okay, Petra Schultz. So I actually did. I mean, even then we had Google. So I Googled Petra and I was able to find her. She was teaching at MacEwan University at the time. And I found her, and I think I had a phone number, and I left a message, and that started. And she knew Lorna. They both live in Edmonton, where I'm on the coast. So yeah, that's kind of how we all met, I guess, was through that. Yeah. And then I went to Edmonton, but my family's there. So I went there many times, and we met.
Okay. We've got a comment coming in from Sharon Acus. And thanks for your comment, Sharon. She said, when my 20-year-old grandson died from a fentanyl overdose, July 5th, 2021, our fucking world was rocked, and my daughter still has not mourned. So sorry, Sharon.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry to hear that. And so that was the sibling, the daughter is the sibling then of the person that was lost. Did I get that right?
20-year-old grandson.
Oh, grandson.
Yeah.
Oh, mom.
So
mom.
She would be his mom.
Yes. Wow. That's really difficult. And, that's really difficult. And it's actually not healthy for us to stay in grief, unexpressed grief for a long time. It just isn't. And if mom of the young person who died, if mom could find her way to really one of our Stronger Together work support groups, and be around people wherein this has happened to them. I mean, that's something that will show up on the screen, I think, later on how to contact. But I'm sorry for that. I'm so sorry. It is so painful that all you want to do is never think about it again. You don't want anything to remind you of it again. You don't want to hear any stories. And it's a survival mechanism. It really is. But that's a long time. And I really hope she can maybe get some help and move forward and find some joy in her life, because there is joy.
I agree. So in that year lead up before you met Petra, and I'm sorry, the name is eluding me.
Lorna. Yeah, Lorna.
Thank you. I was just wondering what kind of supports were there, if any, and in that, once you ladies connected, is that when you realized there just wasn't sufficient supports? Because where I'm going with this is Mom Stop the Harm not only has the peer support groups, but you guys also do a lot of advocacy and that sort of a thing. So I'm just kind of curious, how did things develop from the time that you met to kind of where we are now? That's a pretty big question. I'm sorry.
It is. It's hard it's a long story with lots of convolution, but we met, and we knew that drug policy, or at least our idea was that if we could advocate for drug policy change, that's where we could change what had happened to our kids with more services, safe supply, all the things. We didn't know so much about safe supply at that time. We didn't know a lot, but if you want to change policy, if you want to advocate for policy change, you go to the government. And you look and see what the government's doing, and you go and look and see who's in power and who are the decision makers. And we sort of that was part of how we started our advocacy. But how we started Mom Stop the Harm was, the usual way: Facebook presence, a website, a name, of course. And we, excuse me, I'm just gonna have a little drink of water here.
Actually, Leslie, while you're doing that, I'm going to take a quick moment. We're going to run the Mom Stop the Harm promotional clip. We've watched our children walk away. We've felt hopeless, powerless. We are Moms Stop the Harm. We are not hopeless. We are not powerless. Stronger Together Canada is a national network of peer-led support groups to help navigate these challenges. If you're coping with a child's substance use, reach out to www.holdinghopecanada.org. If you've lost a child to drug poisoning or overdose, www.healingheartscanada.org. We're here to help, and we are stronger together. I'd also like to mention that tonight's episode is also brought to you in part by Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Prairie Sky Recovery Centre in Lipstick, Saskatchewan, and the Elizabeth Fry Society. To learn more about our sponsors, get on our email list, check out upcoming streams and more, check out www.hardknockstalks.com. And while you're there, help us support the platform and pick up some merch from the shop. Okay. So, moving, you were in the middle of basically telling us the evolution of Mom Stop the Harm. In 20 words or less. Uh-oh. We have a frozen screen at the moment. So hopefully that'll resolve itself shortly here, folks, if you want to bear with us.
There she is.
There we are.
Okay, there we go.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you. Was that me? Was that me or you? I don't know. Okay.
That was, let's
All
just
right.
take a minute here.
Yes.
That was Jordan. I told you it was going to happen.
Good one, Dan. Good one. Thanks, Jordan, for freaking me out as you always did. You know.
The same thing happened with Carrie Rigby Wilcox. The same thing happened with Marie Adjarides.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to always happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're connected to you and I. We're all connected to the spirit world, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you just never know. So yes, where were we? Oh, could I just add to the clip of the Stronger Together, Healing Hearts and Holding Hope? I would like to add to that the Healing Hearts is not just for if you've lost a child. It's a spouse, it's a parent, it's a sibling, it's if you've lost a loved one, and it could be family or of origin or your chosen family. If you've lost a loved one to drug harms, you are included in that, invitation to come to Healing Hearts.
Mm-hmm. And actually, Leslie, I'm just going to interject for a quick moment here. I'd like to also clarify: dads are welcome, brothers are welcome, because
yes.
I've had some people make comment like, "Is it just for moms, or is it just So, just to hear it from yourself, just to clarify for anybody who's wondering.
Yes.
Yes, dads, brothers, sons, uncles, whatever, you're all welcome.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. And it is something that we try and mention at all turns, and I think it's on our website as well. But the name is Moms, but absolutely all family members of all genders are welcome.
Beautifully put. So we were talking about the progression of Mom Stop the Harm, and you left off with commenting about approaching the government to advocate for policy change. So is that where you guys started, and then it kind of branched into the support groups, or was that kind of simultaneous?
No, it wasn't. In fact, the support groups I think came along. I don't remember exactly when, but just a few years ago. We were on a steep learning curve, for one thing. Lorna and I went to the to the United Nations in New York, special session on drug policy, where we met people from all over the world, of course, and learned about drug policy and what the problems were with it. We made a lot of connections there, and so we were able to join other advocacy groups and learn through that, and get our foot in the door in terms of finding committees, government committees that we could possibly ask to be on. The other thing is I actually went to Vienna, to the United Nations special session in Vienna. That was, I think that was in 2018 or 2017. I forget exactly, but I was 2018. Thank you. Yeah. I was kind of an add-on to the delegation. I wasn't a delegate, but I got to go with them, and it was it was a mind blower. It was all these countries sitting there trying to talk about drug policy, in countries like Russia and China and Indonesia and other players that denied that they ever even had a drug problem in their countries. And it was stunning to hear these lies come out of these delegates to something as big and important as that. I was way out of my element, but I have to say it just opened my eyes to the world of drug use and the inequities therein. So we like I say, we had a steep learning curve, some missteps. We had some followers, and then they decided we weren't going in the direction they wanted, so they dropped off, and we just kept going. We just kept forging ahead, and obviously people needed to hear what we had to say, and people needed us because I think you said at the beginning, or I don't know if I said this or you said this, but we're up near 4,000 members now from the three of us.
That's amazing.
Governments, yeah, it is, and the federal government listens to us. They invite us to the table. They don't agree with us, but they do listen to us, and they do have us there. And same with at least the provincial government of BC. I'm on several committees here, and again, we're listened to. We point to the evidence. We do everything in our power to have the policymakers, the people who make those decisions, understand what we need in this tragic milieu that we're in right now. So anyways, yes. So somewhere along the line, we, Mom Stop the Harm, got funding from the feds and BC funding from the province to create support groups. Okay. Now, this is a wonderful thing, and we were really glad to get the funding. It wasn't easy, especially the federal grants. But the irony of life is that, they're giving us money to support people who are in grief and people who are stressed out because their child or their loved one is out on the street accessing toxic drugs. They're giving us money to support these people, but they're not making the changes that would make these support groups unnecessary.
Right.
I mean, it's still happening, and it just kind of boggles the mind. And I remember one meeting I had with the former Minister of Mental Health and Addictions here in BC, Judy Darcy, who I liked a lot, actually. And I was at the legislature in her office. We're having a meeting, and she said, I said, I think we're doing the work that the government should be doing. And she said, yeah, I think you are. And I said, well, so you should give us some money. And within, I don't know, like 3 days, I was getting emails from the ministry. Okay, so we'd like to give you some grants for this. Can you send us a proposal? And okay, we did, and boom, we got the funding. And so we started the support groups, which have been incredibly, the word successful doesn't quite say it, but people who go to the support groups find them really, really helpful. They connect with others, and,
so. We've got a few comments coming in here, Leslie, so I'm just going to bring them up. Our first comment is from Linda Parsons. She says, thank you so much for sharing. Having worked in victim services and dealt with families who have suffered loss, this is such an important resource and support for so many. Very great comment, Linda.
Yeah.
And the next comment I'd like to bring up is from Sally Dobson-Steffen. Thank you for your comment. She says, would love to find a support group that meets weekly or monthly. My daughter is an active user and has done detox rehab. And yes, the system has failed. And she goes on to say, and yes, I would love to advocate for change here in Alberta. And I think we'll touch on that in a little bit here, Leslie. Yes. And Sharon says, my mama told me if I have nothing good to say to shut the hell up. Concerning government. Okay.
Oh, Sharon.
Oh, Sharon. Sharon's a regular, wonderful woman. Yeah, she's a real dynamo as well. Love her.
Well, I have to say to Sharon that I often have nothing good to say about the government, and I'll never shut up. So there you go. I'm loud, and I'll continue to be loud.
Well, it's a necessity with the way the machine works, right? The greasy wheel gets, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. For some reason, I always get that backwards, and then I end up sounding like an idiot. So, anyways, moving on. So I'm going to address something that's on Facebook. There was a meme that said, "Survival should not be the benchmark of success." Do you think there's any truth to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, as we always say, dead people can't recover. And so in one sense, survival is critical. You have to be alive to move forward. And survival should not be the benchmark. What should be the benchmark is a person moving into an area where they are balanced, where they are finding some purpose, that they may be able to contribute, and that they can find some joy. I mean, this is what we strive for. This is what everybody strives for, is a balanced and calm and peaceful life. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
And another thing we were wanting to get your input on was we saw a sign at the Canadian Society of Addiction Medicine conference this past weekend. And that said, "Every death is a drug policy failure." I struggle with the idea that every single overdose could be prevented with the right policy, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way I look at that is that there is a lot of truth in it. And if we had a safe supply of drugs, we would be so far ahead in terms of, or behind, however you want to look at it. There would be so many fewer deaths if we had a safe supply. So drug policy is killing people. And if we continue to not have a safe supply, the death numbers are going to continue to be where they are or go up. Drugs are becoming more toxic and so on. I don't think every death is a drug policy failure. I mean, there's all kinds of circumstances wherein people die. And so it's hard to say. It could be, you could maybe expand it to say drug policy, but mental health policy, mental health supports. People, we got to go back further to why are people using drugs? What is it that makes a person want to use drugs? And it's to feel good. It's to mitigate pain. It's to mitigate all the factors, racism and poverty and trauma and mental illness and all the things that go into it. I know I'm kind of going away from the meme there, but policy is, if the government could actually understand and care about people who use drugs, we would be in a different place. But the government, provincial, let's talk about provincial, but both governments really have made a decision. They've made a choice to not roll out safe supply in a fulsome way. They've made a choice. If they'd made a different choice and were working really, truly and truthfully on rolling out a safe supply for people who are addicted or people who have or dependent, have substance use disorder, or for whatever reason need safe drugs, if they had done that, then we would be seeing change. But they haven't, no matter what they say, they have not done that.
Nope. Dan would like to.
So when we talk about safe supply, what is your vision for that? Do you see that as just like the floodgates open and everyone gets as much as they want? Or is there like some regulation involved? Is there some doctor involvement involved? What does that look like for you? What would you like to see?
Okay, well, what I personally, and I'm speaking for myself, not for Mom Stop the Harm, not for BC Centre on Substance Use, just myself. To me, it makes no sense to have stigmatized heroin, for instance, or cocaine, for instance, or even methamphetamine, or fentanyl. People, as I always say this, I can go into one of 10,000 liquor outlets in this province and buy as much alcohol as I want. I can buy enough to kill a whole bunch of people, but it's legal, it's regulated, and one drink isn't going to kill you. Tobacco actually kills more people than the toxic drug crisis, but it's over a long term. But one puff isn't going to kill you. Cannabis, which really isn't dangerous at all, in my opinion, is now regulated and safe and sold in regulated ways. So why is it that we have this stigma around these other substances and we do not allow them to be openly purchased within regulated? I mean, we don't, we try not to sell alcohol to minors. We try not to sell cigarettes to minors, et cetera, et cetera. So in my world, there would be stores where a person could go buy what they needed, and it would be regulated, and it would be, et cetera. It would not be a free for all. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get back to reality. Safe supply. There's many pathways to safe supply, and so safe supply is complex. I mean, it sounds simple to say safe supply. We all need safe supply, or the people who use drugs need safe supply. But where are they going to? What realistically? Where are we going here? There's the medical model. Yeah, where do you start? And they, the government says, okay, doctors. The medicalized model, doctors and nurse practitioners and nurses in clinics. Okay. Problem is with good. Okay, let's try that. But the problems arise because, several reasons. One is that a lot of people who use drugs have been screwed by the medical system. They don't trust the medical system. Mm-hmm. They not only can but they can't find a doctor anyway.
Mm-hmm. Or they're lacking in a necessary ID in order to access
that. Yeah, I mean, there's so many barriers to the mm-hmm. medicalized model. But we don't have to just have the medicalized model. In my dream world, there would be open clinics where people could walk in, not feel the stigma, be titrated, they would be checked out, and their blood would be taken. And this is like, I know somebody recently, I think it was Guy Falvicella on your he was there, right? He was on one of your podcasts. So, and he was talking, I know he is, he's a good friend and he's a colleague. And he works with BCCSU as well. But anyway, he was telling you about the Portland Hotel Society, where people go to be, to get on safe supply, and they're welcomed with open arms. I mean, this to me is like, this is how it should be. Widespread. They have an exemption from the feds. Those exemptions are hard to get. But this is a model that could be widely used if the governments could see their way to giving exemptions and funding. Then the other way, where are we doing on time here? We're okay. The other way, another pathway is the compassion clubs or the co-ops, the buyers clubs, which I'm not sure if Guy talked about that at all. But a buyers club wherein the organizers, the administrators of the club, and we have one here in BC called the Drug Users Liberation Front. They access drugs on the dark web, and they test them thoroughly, and then they have a group of people who they know, and they know that these people are certainly over the age of 19 or older, have substance use disorder, and need safe drugs. This is a really tiny pathway. It's illegal, but no, they haven't been busted yet. And I know and they're not busted because it would be such a bad thing media-wise for the government and so on and so forth. But anyway, so there's the Compassion Club model. There's ways to go. It's not impossible. So therefore it is possible. And that's what I always say. We have to keep being on these committees. We have to keep just pounding on the research, on the evidence, on harm reduction is
certainly a lot of it too.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Leslie, do you feel and like I've actually had this conversation with Barb as well, like is the problem with getting the policy changed the government, or is it the public perception and understanding? Like where do you see the biggest barrier here?
I think it's the government. I think the public is starting to become aware. It's slowly but surely, the Titanic is turning, and it's the politicians who, from the top, like from the premiers or from the prime minister on down, who are afraid of making this change. It's a big change, and I mean there are a lot of people out there that think that handing out drugs is really a stupid thing to do, but those people don't really delve into what's going on. But I do think, because so many deaths, there's been over 30,000 deaths in Canada since 2016. So we know there's a whole lot of people out there that have been touched by these deaths and tragedies. So sadly, but realistically, this is how the public becomes educated, and by losing somebody. So I have faith that the public will turn around. The people that don't agree will turn around and start to understand a little better. And in doing so, then they can make their choices. Their democratic right to vote for people who support these things. Yeah.
So I don't know, and like we talked about before, I'm pretty fresh at all of this. Like I feel like I'm at that learning curve that you were in Vienna, sort of a huge trajectory here. But correct me if I'm wrong. It feels to me like the current climate of understanding of narcotics and whatnot is quite synonymous to the infamous alcohol prohibition time.
You got it. You're absolutely right. I mean, the history. If you look back, especially in BC, at the turn of the century, the 1900s, it was actually racially motivated, where prohibition on that's another story. Sorry. Alcohol is a good example. I was going to go into the opioid crisis, or why opioids became prohibited, and that's because the government didn't want the Chinese people to have any say or power. These people who had come over to work, to build the railroad and so on. Okay, but alcohol prohibition came about because of basically church ladies. My grandmother was one. I mean, it was a little before her time, but the church was pressuring the government, saying alcohol is the devil's drink, and alcohol is breaking up families, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so the government's like, okay, all these people who are speaking out here, let's put a prohibition on alcohol. Well, the same thing happened as is happening now. Organized crime got in on it. They started making moonshine and all the other, and people were dying from these products. Families
That's
were
precisely
broken.
my point. Yeah,
exactly
my point.
And you're absolutely right. So yeah.
So I'm just going to bring up a couple of comments here. First one is, I'm sorry, that was a really awkward transition, but I just want to make sure I get them in before the end of the show. Jenny Churchill says, Leslie, do you know how common it is for provincial coroners' offices to order inquests in non-custody overdoses?
Hi, Jenny. Good to hear from you, but I'm just not quite clear on the question. Could you read that to me again?
I can read that again. Yes. Yeah. Do you know how common it is for provincial coroner offices to order inquests in non-custody overdoses?
I don't know what non-custody actually means in this context, but when coroners have want to have an inquest. No, you know what, Jenny? I can't actually answer that question. I don't know. I just got to say that. I was going to take a guess at it, but that's not fair. So I don't know. And when you find out, you and I are friends on Facebook, and you let me know.
And we'll bring Leslie back on Hard Knocks Talks, and she can tell us.
Yes.
There we go.
The next comment is from Simon Baker. Thanks for your comment. Says, I think it's government understanding of public perception. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hang on. Jenny added in here.
Oh.
And you might still not be able to answer it, but Jenny says, what did she say here? Incarcerated versus in the community.
Okay, so do you know how common it is for provincial coroner offices to order inquests in non-custody overdoses? So how common is it?
Non-custody. Oh,
yeah.
Incarceration. I get it.
Okay.
For some reason, I was going to, you didn't have custody of your kid, and so you can't inquire. You can't ask for a request. Okay.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
Jenny always asks the hard question.
Thanks for stopping the guest, Jenny. Next, Leslie, we're going to throw a bunch of tech stuff at you just to keep you on your toes tonight.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the next comment coming in from John Rausch. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, John. Thank you very much for your comment. He says, it's both as far as I can see, but mostly the government needs to get rid of the stigma and start calling it like it is. We are sick and need help and understanding, not more closed doors.
Totally agree. I mean, when I look at people who are addicted, and, I've never met anybody yet, but there are probably people out there, but who want to be addicted. But the barriers to recovery are so filled with stigma, and it's the government could do a job. They try, but they stumble at anti-stigma messaging. But it takes more than that. We have to change the culture, really. But like we said, more and more people, the public, are starting to understand, and that's why we keep doing what we're doing. And then, as the stigma is reduced, then and just John just brings to mind here. That brings to my mind is something that I like to say to everyone and to the public is that we have to remember that all the people who have substance use disorder, who are addicted, who are dependent on these illicit substances and are in such a bad way, no matter how we look at them right now today and we see them, we remember that they were once beloved little babies. Mm-hmm. They were little children that full of joy. Mm-hmm. And that those people are still in there. That little child is still in every single person. So we need to look at people who have substance use disorder in a different way, with a different lens, with compassion.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with you, Leslie. It's unfortunate how how we view people differently when they get a little bit older. Just as an off the cuff sort of comment here, I saw an ad recently about homelessness. And it was for a shelter for youths. And to really drive the point home, they showed it was about a 13-year-old girl sitting in a bus shelter with blankets, obviously houseless. And then people were just walking by, ignoring her. And then the next scene was a baby in that same situation. And just, it just really drove it home. And then, and the title was how young do they have to be before you care? And really, it's couldn't have been done better, in my opinion, really. Yeah. And it's similar with when you're talking about and seeing people with substance issues or mental health issues that have gone unaddressed. So it's really tragic. And I hope that the more awareness there is, the more that can change. We have just a few minutes left, Leslie, and I'd like to explore what initiatives or what sort of where's Mom Stop the Harm's focus right now. Excuse me.
Well, it's
if you could rally everybody together and let's focus on something. I know I'm on the email list, so I get periodic sort of sign this petition, this, that. Yeah. Where do you think someone like myself is best putting their efforts?
Bless you, or whatever.
I'm just dry throat. Hopefully I'm not catching Sandra's cold.
No.
I'm hitting the mute. I'm trying to hit the mute button like as you cough, but unmute as you're trying to talk, and it's just like.
Here's Dad's opportunity to yell at me to push the button.
You know what? Let's take a minute here. Let me jump on the screen here for a minute. Let Donna have a drink here. We got a comment here from Willen McPherson. Thanks for the comment, Willie. He says, I'm wondering where the best place to place our energy as far as advocacy for safe supply is. I live in BC and work on the front lines and see the harm being done because people can't access safe supply. What an alignment to where we are in the conversation.
And that is pretty much what I was trying to get at with this, but I'm coughing my brains out here.
John's got you.
Thank you so much.
Willie
Thank you, Willie. You read my mind.
Actually, there's several places. One, you can join us if you wish, and the other is speaking to the legislators, your MPs, your MLAs, getting into their office, writing letters. We all do that. Getting in their face, going to rallies. Whenever you see a rally coming up, be there. Media, if you ever. This is something that people don't know, and I'm sure CBC will hate me for saying this, but you can call CBC and say, I want to talk to somebody about XYZ. And if they're interested, they'll get you on. I do it all the time. Sometimes it works, but they know me. So, but do whatever you can think of that will get a message to the legislators. They're the ones who are going to change this. They're the only ones, except for the Compassion Club model. But we can't get that widespread quick enough. 6 or 7 people are dying in this province as we speak. And as we speak, literally someone is dying. And that just, hits me many times a day when I'm talking. That's all I do is talk. But talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to everybody, and tell the stories. Tell the story. So the stories, and I heard them called love stories. These are our most powerful tool in this fight is our stories, the love stories of the people who we've lost. Mm-hmm. So, it's the usual thing, MLAs, MPs, rallies. What do we have? What else do we have? If you can tell me, please do, because we're planning some big rallies coming up next year, but you'll keep an eye out for that.
Okay, great. In fact, that leads us into our next question from John Roosh. And he wants to know, or says, I'm not computer savvy. How do I find the rallies? That's a great question.
That's a good question. Yeah, go to our website and you'll see lots of choices there. Did John say he was in BC? I think he did, right?
I don't know if he did. We've had a lot of comments tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go to our website. We sorry.
Willie said he was in BC.
Willie.
I don't think John said where he is, but
yeah. Each province is different. Each province has its own energy, and some of them don't have a whole lot of energy. Certainly the Eastern Seaboard, those provinces have a real struggle to get enough people, to make a rally. But we've got some amazing leaders there in Quebec, in every province, actually. So going to the website is the best way to keep informed. You can get in touch with people in your area. Leaders through the website and find out. That's the best. It's not always on Facebook, depending on what region you're in. Certainly BC, we get it all. We get them all over Facebook. But and if you need help, email me. I don't know if I'll give out my email right now, but you can find me. People find me, so I'm sure you'll be able to find me.
Look her up on Facebook. That's how I found her.
Yeah, find me on Facebook. There we go. Private message me. There we go.
Perfect.
And I welcome you to do that. Seriously, though.
Yes, that's good. That's good to know. Because I do find myself wondering, like, how can I do more from Saskatoon? So, but and it's hard to keep track of all the various things that are going on. So it's nice to know that there is a hub like Mom Stop the Harm where you can specifically find that information. Okay, Leslie, that is everything for this evening. Is there anything that you would like to say before we let you go?
I think I've said it all. I want to just, shout out to Jenny Churchill, let's just get in touch with me about that. I just want everybody to advocate for safe supply. These are preventable deaths of our loved ones, of our children, of the people that we care about. Preventable deaths. And the government is not acting with urgency. So just everything I just said to John, just get out there and talk to your legislators, be in their face. Yeah, we got to save the lives of people who use drugs.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, thank you very much, Leslie. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your inspiration with us this evening. And we're going to let you go.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was good. This is really good. We'll be talking.
Okay, great. That sounds good, Leslie. Thank you. So, all right, that is it for us tonight. Give us a like, tell everyone about us. If you want to hear more, you can find us on the Hard Knocks Talks YouTube channel or wherever you listen to Hard Knocks Talks podcasts. We love you. Good night.
Music right at the last second there.